Hi, I'm Meg-John Barker from the School of Psychology at the Open University, and given that we're heading to Valentine's Day on February the 14th, I thought I'd talk a bit about my thoughts around that as somebody who writes a lot on romantic relationships. So a couple of things concern me about Valentine's Day. One question is who gets included and who gets excluded from Valentine's Day, and then also kind of what scripts around romantic and sexual behaviour does Valentine's Day perpetuate, and what impact might that have on people. So in terms of inclusion and exclusion, if you look at kind of Valentine's cards and a lot of the adverts around Valentine's Day that commercial institutions put out, you do get a real sense of a kind of male-female couple as the kind of point of Valentine's Day, and most cards assume a heterosexual couple relationship and a romantic and sexual relationship as well. So you could say who is excluded? Well, same-sex couples are not seeing themselves visibly in terms of Valentine's Day, but also people who aren't in a couple, single people, or people who have non-monogamous relationship structures that aren't based on a couple unit. And then also with this assumption that relationships will be both romantic and sexual, aromantic people and asexual people are excluded, and those communities are kind of burgeoned in recent years. There's much more awareness that not everyone experiences romantic attraction and or sexual attraction. So we can kind of criticise Valentine's Day for the people it excludes and makes feel pretty lonely and left out sometimes in terms of Valentine's Day. But also Valentine's Day isn't great for those it includes. One of the problems I've talked about a few times, and you can look on my website for my past videos on Valentine's Day, is about how much pressure it puts on romantic love. So to have a day for Valentine's Day, and we could also say a similar thing perhaps about anniversaries and how those get celebrated, and weddings and other kinds of rituals, is it assumes that the romantic relationship in your life is like the most important one, and that can kind of de-emphasize things like friendship relationships, collegiate relationships, family relationships, neighbourly relationships, and even our relationships beyond those with humans, like our relationships with companion animals or with the wider world or nature. So there's something to be said for thinking about what kind of love we celebrate and what kind we don't, and maybe trying to equal those out a bit more, in order not to put so much pressure on one person to meet all of our needs, really. But this year as well, I was struck by the kind of messages that Valentine's Day can give around gender relationships. So I noticed on the tube that all the adverts around Valentine's Day have a masculine hand giving flowers or a card to a feminine hand, and it's clear that you're meant to be seeing a man giving this thing to a woman. And I just thought, in the wake of the Me Too campaign and then subsequent news stories around Aziz Ansari and around the cat person story that was in a New York magazine, that it kind of is somewhat disturbing, because the idea is all around a script that in terms of romantic and sexual behaviour, men should initiate and women only get to either receive or refuse that initiation. So it kind of continues this idea that that is the romantic script and the sexual script. And from psychology, we know this is really problematic because, in terms of consent, because it's not an idea of a mutual conversation about are we going to have a romantic relationship or are we going to have sex. It's much more there's this initiation, and there's a lot of pressure on a person not to reject that or to find ways to kind of very easily put that down. And I think that the Me Too campaign has highlighted really well all the problems that can emerge from that. So we really ought to be rewriting that script and trying to come up with more mutual and consensual ways of doing romantic and sexual behaviour. And it would be great to see people using Valentine's Day as a way of shifting that script rather than just perpetuating it.